Hi friends, it's Jess with Our Bipolar. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, just a little bit about me. I have bipolar 1 and I was diagnosed 26 years ago when I was a sophomore in college. And back there is Lucy, my dog. She's the best. I like to include her in most of my videos. Okay, so today I would like to talk about marijuana use and bipolar disorder. And I'm just gonna say up front, I'm not here to tell you you shouldn't use marijuana. I'm just here to tell you my experience with it. But before we jump right into that, I'll ask you to please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, like this video, comment. I love talking to you guys in the comments. You can find me on social media if you wanna reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. Okay, so marijuana. Cannabis. I'm gonna call it weed because that's what I have always called it. So I'm gonna do a little bit of a story time, just tell you a little bit about my experiences with weed, why I will never smoke weed again, but I'm not telling you what to do. And I also wanna talk a little bit about the legalizing marijuana movement that's happening throughout the country and why I just don't know. I just don't know about that. So I'll start off with my experience with marijuana. So first, I'll say that in high school, I had a group of friends, like towards the end of high school, the last year or two, who, they were smoking weed like every weekend. And I'm this kind of like anxious person, like outside of having bipolar disorder. I'm pretty anxious and like fearful of things. And I also had an older brother who had gone to rehab for drug use. I mean, I don't think it was for weed, but wait, putting down my coffee. I don't think it was definitely not for weed, but I was fearful of developing some kind of addiction or if it, turned into taking other drugs. So my friends would all go outside. We would hang out at this one particular friend's house a lot. They would go outside, they would smoke, and I would stay inside by myself and just like never did it. And honestly, I wish I had remained that way. So right before college, I finally decided to do it. And then I would do it here and there, like during my first year of college, into my sophomore year of college when I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. It's hard for me to say exactly how much marijuana, weed could have played a part in causing symptoms for me, specifically causing mania and psychosis. I know that can happen with weed. And then you also hear from people who say that, who have bipolar, who say that smoking weed actually helps their symptoms, calms them. I think I've mostly seen that with friends who have bipolar 2 and not bipolar 1, people who have never experienced full-blown mania and psychosis. But I do know a couple people who have bipolar 1 who use marijuana to this day, and they're fine. So I really think it could be person to person. Personally, I wish I had never gone down that road because, like I say in my first Manic episode video, I'll link right here and also in the description box, I listed 3 possible triggers for my bipolar coming out, emerging. And those were using what is it called? Bipolar brain, lithium brain here. Okay, those were using an antidepressant, which can sometimes bring out bipolar. Also going away to college, having a huge life change. And the third thing was childhood trauma. I dealt with quite a bit of that and I was in therapy for that when the bipolar came out. But I think that now I should add a number 4. Fourth trigger would be using weed, smoking weed. I think all these things were happening at the same time. It could have been all 4 things triggered the bipolar. It could have been one of them. It could be something more than the others. I mean, I don't know, but I was also smoking weed at the time. Like I said, I've only done weed maybe like, well, probably underestimating. I was thinking like a handful of times in my life. It's probably at least 2 hands, I would say. But yeah, it wasn't like all the time, every day, every weekend, not at all. So freshman year, I was already on that antidepressant. I had been diagnosed with major depressive disorder. So I had a psychiatrist I was seeing. Of course, I didn't tell her I was smoking weed occasionally. Didn't seem like she needed to know that, although maybe she did. So throughout freshman year, I was still really depressed. Antidepressant was not working. Found out later it's, probably because I had bipolar disorder. Usually antidepressants don't really work for that, or if they do, they work a little too well and they push us into mania. So, like I said, there was a lot going on, but eventually the summer after my freshman year, so about to go into my sophomore year, and what happens is I do have what I now realize was a manic episode. I had gone up to Penn State for Arts Fest. We had friends that went there. My friend Sam and I went up, and I did not have psychosis, but I was smoking weed there, and yeah, things got a little weird. I do have a video with my friend Sam on that. I'll link it here and in the description. But I had kind of forgotten that we even smoked weed. I was just thinking we were drinking some, and I was definitely like really, really extremely high energy, very annoying eventually to everyone I was with. And Sam tells that story. And I'm kind of laughing because it was kind of funny. I mean, it was funny until it wasn't, basically, but you can go back and watch that video if you want. And then sort of go on, didn't realize that was mania, even though I couldn't sleep all night and I was just energized for days and I was acting very grandiose and like all these other symptoms of mania, racing thoughts. And then I go back to college at the University of Pittsburgh for my sophomore year, and pretty much right away, I'm having more of these mania symptoms. I do go, and I remember one time in particular, friends at school and we go to this like frat party and we smoke weed with some of the fraternity brothers who we knew. And pretty shortly after is when the manic episode got really bad and I went into psychosis for the first time. And like I said, that video, the first manic episode video, I explain what happened. Basically, like, I was super paranoid. I thought I was addicted to water. I couldn't stop drinking water, so that became an addiction in my mind. And also, I was hallucinating. I was, seeing things. I thought I had X-ray vision. There was a lot of weird I shouldn't say weird. These were symptoms, right? This is an illness, but it was out of the ordinary, let's just say. It wasn't my normal behavior, and it wasn't considered normal behavior, right? So I do think that smoking weed could have contributed to these episodes. I don't know for sure. I don't think I'll ever know. And that's fine, but it was enough to stop me from using marijuana in the future. And so now it's been decades since I've used it. I don't have any wish to do that. But like I said, I do know for some people, they view it as helpful. But what I worry about is with marijuana being legalized in many states here in the US, that people who maybe have the genetic background who could develop bipolar disorder will because of smoking weed. And obviously you can be doing that outside of it being legal, which I was doing. I do think it can open up to a larger audience, demographic, group of people saying like, this is okay. And I have heard instances of maybe because the weed that you get that is legal is stronger. I've heard this, that people are going into psychosis, people who do not end up having bipolar disorder. I mean, I don't know enough about that, but yeah, it just does give me pause and make me worry a little bit. I think outside of people who have, you know, bipolar disorder, other serious mental illness like schizophrenia, I think it can be a huge help for a lot of people who have chronic pain, cancer, I mean, tons of other illnesses or disorders. I think marijuana use has really helped. I think it could help my husband, Bryan, even though he won't smoke weed because he has this, you know, spinal cord tumor. It's benign, but it causes a lot of pain in his legs, and it can't be removed completely, but I can point you to a video where we talk more about that right here and then just in the description. But so I do think it can be extremely helpful and like used in a medicinal way. But I just get really nervous for people who have mental illness. So what do you think? Have you had any experiences with weed that made you say, I don't want to use this anymore? Or does it help you? Or like, what do you think about the whole legalization movement? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too. All right, well, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.